Htp family. This is lesson 9, Diplomacy, of the course on African philosophy by Marcus Messiah Garvey. I am your host, Onitaset Kumat, author of the Book of Power, the Pro-Black Compendium, Zabiri and the Maroons of Ma'ab, and of course the Pan-African Wisdom series. This is the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio, and we're going to jump right into this. We are almost through this whole course on African philosophy, and so far it's been eye-opening. I hope you're getting as much as I'm getting, because what we're doing is we're doing a thorough reading of one of the most potent courses of the 20th century. And of course we're looking at it in the lens of the 21st century, but we're looking at it from like a pretty haphazard time. So this is a really good time to explore Pan-African nationalism, or even some people will call African fundamentalism, as an idea, when we're looking forward into the future. And this is really important. I do want to tell you, follow my Twitter, subscribe, like, share, and leave some comments in the chat. I'm going to be engaging people, so do whatever it comes, like whatever you feel like doing, just do it. It's more than welcome. Let's go. So lesson 9, this is diplomacy. And what is diplomacy? Let's see. Diplomacy is a word used to express the peculiar relationship between nations. Diplomacy is the relationship that nations use to conduct their communication or approach in dealing with matters of state and to affect the relationship of a certain nature between them. In the broader sense, diplomacy means the thoughtful and careful consideration of words and ideas expressed to reduce the words and ideas to the level of being the least offensive, while they carry the force of what is desired to the maximum. It is important to realize, I want you to realize this. So this is something you're going to pick up in the Book of Power, right? In the Book of Power, we talk about nations, because the reality is that African people have to be about nation building, okay? When you talk about nations, you have to understand that a nation is the highest form of government. Like the highest form of power on earth. Okay? Nations have what, some will consider sovereignty, but of course you have to defend it. If you don't defend your sovereignty, then you pretty much don't have sovereignty. You do have sovereignty, but it's like, who cares? You have to defend it. But all the same, nations are in fact the highest power. So diplomacy is one of the highest arts in that sense, one of the highest forms of communication. So let's keep going. To be a diplomat, one has to be very careful in his expression before indulging in them. He must think seriously and calculatingly so that his thoughts and words may have the desired effect without arousing suspicion or inviting inviting hostility. I'm just thinking about this brother who he says the wildest things. I'm finna send this one, right? All right. You must first be a very skillful thinker and psychologist to be a diplomat. A diplomat never reveals his true state of mind. He never reveals his hand in dealing with a situation. He always keeps a line of defense for whatever he says or does in reserve. A diplomat never talks before he thinks. He thinks an idea over several times before he expresses it. The idea is that he must not be found wanting or on the wrong side of any question. If he is found on the wrong side, his efforts at diplomacy fail. He must be able to read other people's minds and intentions and use that knowledge to safeguard and protect himself and the interests he represents. So again, this is when we talk about diplomats. So I want you to know, right now you might not have an African nation, okay? You might not necessarily have a true African nation. So a diplomat, in that sense, is going to be a representative for organization, in a sense, right? Like organization, you could say, is a macro scale of nation. But again, the nations far outpower organizations. But, because, like just naturally speaking, right? The organization... Yeah, so you could be a diplomat for the organization. Like, if you're... Because I know not too many people, obviously, but I know some people who are promoting my books. You know, when you're promoting the good, like the good words, you know, the good words that we've published, because you know we publish things like this, you know, quality content like this. When you are a diplomat for this, you want to be on the right side. You want to, like, this is something that you want to understand. You know, you want to read people's minds and intentions, and use that to promote the interest that we have. Otherwise, what it's going to go against us. So here it is. Skillful diplomat is always master of the situation. He is able to fool or deceive others to gain his point. You know, he never exposes himself to be taken advantage of. He always leaves a loophole for escape from danger or trouble. His language is always couched in a manner to carry weight in the particular direction, but at the same time not to be so offensive or revealing as to cause the person dealt with to immediately jump at conclusions by the completeness of the thought expressed. In fact, a diplomat always gives out expressions that carry double meanings, or more than double meanings, so that if one interpretation is dangerous to affecting a good relationship, he can always fall back and say it was not intended that way. In diplomacy, if you mean to take advantage of the other person, never open a suggestion, but gauge your words most carefully to ultimately win that in view without expressing it in raw. A good way to get good results is to actually feed your opponent with good words that mean nothing, and then when you come down to the business part, hold your ground, but still use good and pleasant words to win. So again, it's important as a diplomat. Like if you are engaging people, it is important to have an object in mind. So if you read the Pro-Black Companion, you're gonna see the top 20 tips for charm, you know, for charming people. And one of the things is that when you engage people, right? One of the rules of engagement for people is to want something, is to want them to do something. You know, and if you're engaging people and you don't want them to do anything, then you're mistakenly engaging people. You're mistakenly engaging people. You know, you have to want them to do something. And I know some of you might say, well, wait, Oni, are you talking about how you keep talking about, you know, the books thing? No, it's not that. But it's more like if I'm talking to you and I say, look, I need you to get up and do some work. You know, I need you to like, for instance, right here, when I'm reading Message to the People, I want you to read Message to the People. You understand? I want you to read and listen to Message to the People. You know, sometimes I will deviate from that, and I might say, oh, well, you know, subscribe, share, like. Or I might say, you know, don't forget that I have literature myself. Or I might say, you know, just any number of things, right? I might tell you a good story. Why not? You know, because that's another thing you want to do. In the Pro-Black Companion, we talk about, you know, just be on point 60% of the time. But you have to have a point to be on point with, you know, so 60% of the time. And this is just something in general. Like, it extends beyond, you know, it's like, even if you're like if you're trying to flirt with someone, you know, you're trying to woo a woman into a relationship or whatever, or you know, if you're a woman, you want to woo a man into a relationship. When you're trying to woo somebody, right? You don't 100% of the time, hey, you wanna go to my bedroom? You wanna go to my bedroom? I wanna go. No, you don't do that. You know what I mean? I mean, you know, if you want to, you can, but it's just not cool. No. But what you can do is you can, like, 60% of the time. So you know, the other 40% of the time you're telling an amazing story, or another 40% of the time you're, you know, explaining, you know, this about yourself, that about yourself. But you know, you don't want to just over talk. Oh yeah, you know, I'm really interested in blah blah blah, and Du Bois, he was such amazing blah blah blah, and blah blah blah. You know, because eventually, you know, the person's gonna say, is this person even interested in me on a sexual level? You know, and so you want to be focused on that at least 60% of the time. You know, and not just in words, obviously, but that's the point. You know, you do not like, a good way to get good results is to feed your opponent with good words. You know, that mean nothing, but you have to be result oriented. Okay, result oriented. So again, Never approach anybody that you want to get anything out of or any good results from in an offensive manner. To the contrary, win them with the perfect smile in the most gentle manner. Do this even with your enemy until your enemy has positively delivered himself and there is no other alternative. Then show your hand. Never show your hand at the start. The idea is to make friends and to get results, rather than make enemies and lose results. This must be applied to all phases of organization, work, dealing with the race, and dealing with others of other races. It is said that a kind word turneth away wrath. It is good diplomacy. Even if a man is going to kill you by threatening you, it is best to smile with him before he actually carries out the intention, so as to prevent him from doing so by showing him a smile, rather than to suggest the gravity of your indignation, which will cause him to think that you are going to kill him first. Then he will surely kill you in self-defense, even though he first threatened you. So, this is a, this is a pretty good advice. I mean, it's not perfect advice, obviously. You always want to be prepared to defend yourself. You always want to be more prepared than the next person. You're not always going to be more prepared than the next person, though. And in that case, this is charm 101. As to keep this is the self-discipline that can actually further extend your life. I mean, no guarantees, obviously. Somebody wants to kill you, they probably just gonna kill you. If you don't protect yourself, if you don't engage in self-defense, but what are you gonna do about that? Many a man has been killed when their assailant did not really mean to kill them, but only to bluff them. So this is like somebody threatening you, like, hey, give me all your money. They have a gun to you, and you're like, fuck, you're like, F you or whatever, right? F you, do it, and then of course whatever. Or you could just be like, hey, I really don't have any money, or it's only on my card, and blah 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 blah. But in taking the matter too seriously and showing that he was going to do some killing too, he gets killed by the man's protecting himself after his threat to keep from being killed. Being killed. Never lose your head in dealing with a problem, because in doing so you are bound to blunder and ultimately lose. Even if you are in an accident where you come face to face with death, don't lose your head, because you may need your calm and collective judgment to save your life. The moment you lose your head, you are taking chances. The odds are against you. And yeah, it's really tough to not lose your head. This is something that you want to practice. If you find yourself, just think about the last time you lost your head. You lost your cool. Think about the last time you lost your cool, and really, break it down, analyze it, and try to, make preventative measurements. Take preventative measurements to never lose your cool again. A lot of times you'll realize, for instance, I see that when I lose my cool, I'm provoked by people, pretty much. You know what I mean? I'm provoked, and not just any people, but sometimes people who would be closer to you. This can impact you, and that's not to say that my solution is to not have people close to me. It's more so, just on an analytical framework. If I'm doing my own analysis, I'm saying, is to bear in mind that for instance, you could easily express to somebody, you're really close to me. This is why I'm being provoked. I feel provoked. I feel like this is and then you could understand, you could communicate whether that's a manipulation kind of deal, whatever. But the point being that it's different from just getting overwhelmed. That's something for you to explore for yourself, and I hope you do. And everybody should explore this for themselves. So morally, a diplomat must be a scamp, in that he must be a mental twister. He cannot deal with affairs with a clean conscience, because he is to anticipate the evil of other men's designs, because the world and mankind are immoral and dishonest in their behavior. He necessarily has to adopt such a method as to safeguard himself or his interests from such design. Alright, so this is actually pretty interesting. So morally, a diplomat must be a scamp, and that he must be a mental twister. He cannot deal with affairs with a clean conscience, because he is to anticipate the evil of others. You have to anticipate that the next person has evil designs. Now this is interesting because this more so relates with the Western world. This more so relates to before we have a nation. You have to realize, for instance, engaging other black people, that they are going to have like a white superiority complex. That they're going to have, like for instance, an ethnocentric consciousness. Like let's say if they're on the continent, they might have an ethnocentric consciousness. If they're in the West, they might have a white centered consciousness. And what you need to do is you need to anticipate that, and in a sense, and not just that, they might be engaging with these consciousness, like for like at least a decade before you came around. So for at least a decade they were wrestling with this idea of, why is it that when I think of, like for instance, a Western person, why is it that when I think of divinity, I see a white person? And on the other hand, you might have the ethnocentric sense. You say, my ethnic background has been attacked by another ethnic background. And that's how people that's how people move in the world for like over a decade before they engage you. This is how they are groomed as children, and you have to say, and it's not necessarily, immoral and dishonest as much as, we have to of course, Garvey might be talking about something else, but we have to understand that for us as a people, what we aim for, right? This ethnocentrism and this Eurocentrism is against us. Technically we're looking for that Afrocentrism, if you will, and that's not really a mindset that's that we can anticipate in the next person. And even when people claim to be Afrocentric, if you will, they, we notice that they, you can gauge that they are far from. Because even like right here, you're gonna see Garvey mentioning Christianity. This is not an Afrocentric idea, but we're gonna keep going. You cannot be a true Christian before the act, but become so afterwards by repentance, which is personal. If you are protecting the interests of others, you have to sink your own personality, but still recognize the fact that you are responsible to those others. Therefore, you have to adopt all the methods of diplomacy to protect others. Hence, you cannot do so with a very Christian soul, because most of the souls you are dealing with are corrupt. So, this is important. This actually might be something, usually I just kind of like, well, I don't want to talk about it. Although Brother Afromac, who's an excellent Garvey scholar, he's probably going to be like, wait a second. But still, alright, you cannot be a true Christian before the act, but become so afterwards by repentance, which is personal. If you are protecting the interests of others, you have to sink your own personality, but still recognize the fact that you are responsible to those others. Therefore, you have to adopt all the methods of diplomacy to protect others. Hence, you cannot do so with a very Christian soul, because most of the souls you're dealing with are corrupt. So, this is just, like Christian garble, to be honest. Most of the souls are corrupt. How do we use this for us as a people? Like, okay, here's what it is. You cannot, let's say instead of Christian, you cannot be, well, I use Sankofa, right? But let's say you cannot be very, therefore you have to know all the other opponents to protect others. Here he's using Christian almost like noble, okay? Or almost as pure, almost as, I would say Uncopia, right? So he's like, you cannot be like a very pure, honest, blameless individual and deal with, like in dealing with others, because you have to realize, look, a lot of us are corrupt, and I mean, this goes into a lot of ways. It's like for instance, I can't like just write my books in Swahili if well, not right now anyway. Just because of how much the English dominates the African literary scene. Okay, English dominates the African literary scene. Or even like, let's say if I do this podcast, in Swahili, like I'm not even popular enough in the Swahili world to, like, I mean, I'm not really popular in the English world either, obviously, but like I'm even less popular in the Swahili world. And then not just that, like my skills at Swahili are pretty lacking. I mean, in that sense, it's like meeting people where they are, and in some respects, meeting people where they are, and that's actually something that you have to realize as a diplomat. Now it's interesting because people are Christian, or soy descent Christian, so self-described Christian. So that's actually, but again, even Garvey would say, look, most people like their morals are corrupted, and that's not to say, and that's what you would expect. I mean, because the thing is, Christianity itself is a moral corruption, so it's not a huge surprise, but it's an interesting way to look at things. So let's keep going. After you have dealt with them and you have won your point, if there was any act that was immoral or crooked which enabled you to win your point, then pray afterwards for forgiveness, but not before. Be sure that the act is done and leave the act where it is. If it is in the interest of others, then square your conscience with a mon. So he's saying, look, if you like you don't have to be on your best behavior with other people if it means that you can, convince them. It means that you can get another recruit, another convert to the better cause of Pan-African nationalism. Now, of course, this is back to that Christianity stuff where it's like pray afterwards for forgiveness. Like truly, I don't know about this forgiveness thing, but again, it stands to reason that there's a need for a balance. Like you have to remember, this is what you have to remember when you go into the Book of Power. You're gonna understand why. Like if you read it thoroughly, you read it carefully, you read it like how I'm reading this, there's going to be a essay on, or a speech on Ma'at, and that speech right there is going to inform you that both good and bad is done through war. So you might say war is immoral. Like usually, you like in the Christian sense, war is immoral. So this is where Garvey's, coming from. In the Christian sense, war is immoral. Warfare is immoral. But in the real African sense, warfare can be moral or immoral. It's a matter of what you're doing it for. So really, Garvey's communicating like an African spirituality in spite of, the Christian delusion that makes pretty much you fighting for your liberation a negativity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you, look, get that book, start reading, order the book so you can read it, after Message to the People is finished, you can read it on your own. And so I'm going to give you the ad that, I worked hard on, and I hope you enjoy. Let's go. Okay, so I know books, alright? So let me tell you about a book. Alright, check it. So the goal and objective is to be selective, elective for knowledge with the black directive, checking sources, heritage, and legacies, with the brilliance to defeat our nemesis. The Book of Power, so aptly named, esteemed and famed for informing the brain, and doing the same as the ancestors before us. Sankofa, that's the life chorus. Wisdom is the key against dangers. Either change the leaders or lead the changes. We are due in Africa with no strangers. Do you hear us? Okay, hold on. We can't continue to beat the second fiddle. African power is the end of the fiddle. Let's build a nation the likes which never existed. The motto heretofore, we persisted. Better, we resisted. Best, we building. We'll raise the roof and break through the ceiling. Peeling away the chains we were given to stop just surviving, start thriving and living. Africa's about to host superpowers. China and US back up, the time's ours. No one can be free without freeing themselves. But freedom is shown and owned on books
shelves. The book of power, a key for liberation. There's no domination where there's education, because ignorance is man's main weakness. All of exploiters we don't teach this. Then the pages of sages, king and quick. Akapong, Delaney, Dessalines, Nyere, Garvey, and Zinga, and Cooks. 500 pages surpassing most books. The task is told to bring up a continent. You will hold the tone for the confident. Have some pride and push forward your chest. Your leaders are reading one of the best. The book has science, covers violence, self-reliance, and does away with silence. The time has come for the work to get done and build up a land that'll be second to none. We'll organize, technologize, strategize a new Africa before our eyes, and blackness will be the complexion we see. Anytime we envision what it means to be free. So come join minds, read what is written. Here be solutions, no longer hidden. Nothing works in theory, all that works, works and works. So it's time to put ourselves first. Change the leaders and lead the changes. Tell your friends, family, and neighbors. Change the leaders and lead the changes. Tell your friends, family, and neighbors. Change the leaders and lead the changes. Tell your friends, family, and neighbors. Change the leaders and lead the changes. Book of Power. So the Book of Power can be purchased on Amazon. Just click on the link below. Alright, send me on tap. Tulende ma'a, tushinde is fek. Tulende ma'a, tushinde is fek. Tulende ma'a, tushinde is fek. Hotep.
Alright. So yeah, wait, what? What happened? Oh. Alright, yeah, so that's crazy. I have like two. I wonder if you guys can saw this. Check this out. So let's go back to what's going on. I just had to tell that brother. I said, "Look, man, you gotta read. You gotta read. You gotta read lesson 9. You know, just took that little moment to tell this brother. Of course, to check in, tune in. But let's do this, guys. And that's what you gotta do. You gotta share. You gotta share. You know, right now, I mean, I think lesson 1 is. Let me just double check. I think lesson 1 is only. I want to say like 37 views, you know, which is not a lot of views, you know, considering that this is one of the best, you know, one of the top 3. I usually say one of the top 3 books ever published, you know. Oh no, sorry, not top 3 books ever published, but one of the top 3 books available to you. You know, so it's like this should be 67 views, not a lot. So you gotta share it. You gotta, get people onto it, because this is Garvey, and he was one of the best that we've produced. You know, particularly post Ma'afa or during the Ma'afa. But let's keep going. If the truth is going to affect your cause, then never speak of it. You see what I'm saying? If the truth is going to affect your cause, never speak of it. But go around it in every kind of ambiguous way to justify your lie to save the cause. If you have won your cause by a lie, then as early as possible try to make the cause right, but only after you have won, for no cause can continue successfully without righteousness of the things from which you are imaginative, from all your imaginative experience. So never give up in seeking support. If one logic fails, use another until you have talked out your opponent by semblance of justification. You may say, I don't mean so-and-so. It was not the way I intended it. I have a different idea entirely. You are misunderstanding me. You have a misconception of what I mean. You probably didn't hear me when I said so-and-so. I may admit that I was not clear enough, but I didn't mean what you say. Then be able to build up a new argument on that and let the thing that you are arguing about take a back seat, so that they will forget that you were arguing about and take you up on the other thing you have said and make that the debate. Thereby you leave the situation where it was for another time. Always try to lead the other fellow away from the true idea. If you're on the wrong side, build up a new argument or hold him on that until you have worn him out. Let him say that is not the argument, then still persist in something else. Always profess friendship for your enemy so as to disarm him. Don't refer to him as Mr. Brown. Say, my good friend Mr. Brown. I cannot understand why my good friend is so opposed to me. I've always thought of him as a kindly disposed man and a very good fellow, but always watch him. Don't take any chances. Offer your enemies. So this is pretty interesting. I mean, I kind of instinctively do this, in a sense. But just profess friendship. And like with regards to this, Like even when you're wrong, which don't be wrong. I would really say don't be wrong. But even if you are wrong, focus on the real. Like again, it's like 60% of the time. 60% of the time, your focus as an Oncobia should be a Pan-African nation. Okay, 40% of the time, everything else is kind of distraction. Now, granted, I sometimes make this error, and I might engage in a topic, way beyond but and I mean somebody out there is laughing, but I mean like again, like that's not my focus. My focus is always I mean the only thing about like right now, because again this is a situation, this is a weird awkward year where I had intended to travel to Africa, and now the whole world is kind of like, oh, traveling is pretty limited. But otherwise, yeah, just try to focus and try to be courteous to always, offer your enemies gifts that you can afford to lose, so as to win them like the Greeks bringing gifts. Your words must be formed and positive when you want to commit other people. For instance, do you intend to pay my money? Have you made up your mind to answer my letter? Always let it be a question that can be answered with a yes or no. Don't suggest to anybody in long sentences. When you ought to commit yourself, do so in veiled language, and never finally commit yourself until you are ready to close the matter. Always try to escape giving yes or no to any question that is important. If you have to say yes or no, do so in long explanations so that you may escape out of the explanation from the positive answer. If trouble is involved, it becomes your defense. Always try to leave in your remark or words room for controversy or denial of meaning as decided on by the other party. Now, of course, that's not always going to work. People are going to be like, yes or no? Which one is it? Yes or no? But, but you could always still, allegedly, I was actually a master of deflection at one point. Alright, let's keep going. When you want to protect yourself and trap the other fellow, let him write you short sentences by leading him up to such a manner of reply. When you have to answer, make your sentences long and capable of taking many interpretations. If you want to close the matter directly to your interest, then clinch it by accepting his argument in short sentences that cannot be misunderstood in law or arbitration. When you are inviting explanations, make your sentences very short and to the point. When you are asked to give explanations, consider carefully if you should make your sentences long or short. Use discretion. Always allow the other fellow to talk first by leading him. Let him talk of everything in his manner so that you may know your man. Never let him lead you out. Always be reserved. In a word, be a good listener. Then, when you have everything on the other fellow, decide the situation and take action. To get a man to talk, offer him courtesy. Offer him a drink, a cigar, etc. Say, it is a beautiful day, isn't it? How have you been doing lately? Are you comfortable where you live? What do you think of so-and-so? If he is reticent, you know you have a hard customer to deal with. Then find out his weakness by investigation, and when you find it, invite him back again and cater to that weakness. His weakness may be for ladies. Invite him to meet your best friend and get your friend to pump him and tell you what you could not get from him yourself. If you are dealing with the opposite sex, do the same thing. If he is addicted to drinking, give him a few extra drinks and let him talk. But you must not drink as much as he, otherwise you will be in the same position. Use your skill in letting him believe that you are drinking too, but don't drink. If you cannot get him by himself, get his friend to tell you all he knows about him. Now, see, Garvey's kind of doing some low-key espionage stuff, right? I mean, you like after COINTELPRO hit, you really can't do this stuff. Like me personally, it's like you going around asking people, like, come on. Anyway, if the knowledge possessed by the person is important to you, never stop following him, even if you have to go 6,000 miles, directly or indirectly, to get your information. So this is actually intelligence stuff, like intelligence, like I said, espionage stuff. So, take heed that, you might need to deal in espionage in order to promote what you need to promote. You might need to deal with espionage. You might, this is what I'm saying. You have to know the other person. There's an African proverb that goes along this, which is, I think, to teach one must know. About the person, seeking to learn or something like that, right? And it's in the Pro Black Compendium. I guess I don't remember it off the top of my head, but the idea is that, if you're trying to get somebody to do something, you're basically trying to teach them, Okay, you're trying to teach them the right way of operation, but you have to mold that teaching towards who they are. And this is something that's really important. A lot of times we kind of skip over this. We kind of just say, oh, well, this is what, blah, blah, blah. But it's like you have to apply intelligence. Otherwise, you're messing up, and your reputation is on the line from it. So you may get it through an agent, a neighbor, or his or a person he does business with. Follow every clue of an association until you get your information about the subject. Never accept invitations from your enemies. Always find some excuse with kind thanks. If you have once injured a man, never trust him completely, because he's always waiting for his chance to get even with you. Imagine that. Facts. Alright. Never talk your personal business or the business of your cause to a stranger. Tell him nothing until you know him sufficiently. Don't accept, and that's important too. Like, this is like also stop snitching on yourself. This is actually social media. Social media is you talking your personal business or business of your cause to a stranger. You understand? A lot of it. Somebody could even say, "Hey man, that's this whole podcast." Look right here. This is a Firelight the Conqueror Rastafari. Garvey was a psychological genius. Yes, Ashe. Yeah, Garvey was a psychological, like he was. This is like, here, I feel like this is like espionage 101. Like, Garvey would have made an excellent espionage, like an excellent spy, for the cause. And he's also teaching us as a people to understand that you have to do espionage for the cause, and also how to resist espionage. That's another thing. Because here's one thing I could say, like, based off of what I know, if I were to be recruited, like if I were to have some sort of mission towards the destruction of a black organization, it would be pretty damn easy. That's the issue with us as a people. I don't know if anybody's seen it. There's right now what we call like there's protests, Floyd, whatever. The protest that, in the history books you might say there's rioting and looting, but in reality what you're going to see is that there's a lot of people all over the world just dancing, like white and black folk dancing, like square dancing, line dancing, to music. And it's like white people know, like they study you, and they say, you know what, if I break out a boombox, these people will get less angry. These people will have a good day, a great time. They'll go home and they'll say, man, I want to do that another time. Like, what a magical moment. They study you. And in fact, I want to say this too, that the individual, the Scotty, who gave the floor plan to the floor plan of, I think it was I want to say Bobby Hutton. No, not Bobby Hutton. Fred Hampton. So Fred Hampton's killed in his home, like a police raid. They just come in, they break down the door, and they go straight to the bedroom and shoot him in his house. There's a shootout, obviously, but they just kill him. His floor plan was given by, I think, like one of his bodyguards, and the way how they got his floor plan was the white espionage agent said, black people, what we know about black people is that they like cars, so we're gonna offer this dude a car for the floor plan for Fred Hampton. You get what I'm saying? Like a lot of the agents that were bought off by these white folk were bought off by simple trinkets, like, oh, here's a Cadillac, or what have you. This is it's like you have to know the next person, and Garvey's letting you know that it goes both ways. You don't engage strangers. You don't really engage other people, but more importantly, you have to do your own. It's counterintelligence. It's everything. It's intelligence and counterintelligence. You have to do your own counterintelligence measures. But let's this is Ashe, bro. I'm back here with you again today. We had a little chat on Twitter yesterday. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yes sir. Garvey was with the writing, right? Yeah, Garvey was. I'm gonna reply to that, but yeah. Shoot. I mean, like you were saying, and like I would say, Garvey understands the mission. It's all about the mission. At the end of the day, it's about the mission. and I feel like this even ties into what he said like what he said yesterday, in regards to, you know, never talk your personal business or your cause to a stranger, in the sense of, you know, if he goes about saying, you know what, I want to do this, I want to, like, you can tell it to the wrong person, and that can push back your cause. You know, if I tell, like, for instance, if I go to my friend and I say, hey, you know what, I want to do some riding, blah 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 blah, right? And then my friend, you know, he's like, yeah, you know, only likes doing riding, only wants to do riding. He can accidentally tell somebody who then knocks on my door. You know what I mean? So that's another aspect to it as well. Like, because when you're a leader, the lens is on you. You know, as opposed to if you don't have a leadership. If you don't have leadership and you do something wild, that's fine. You know, but if you are the leadership, you know, you have to understand that you're being watched. You know, and there are strangers and enemies, and there's intelligence going on. So yeah, you know, definitely. But, you know, respect for the engaged, you know. Let's go. Don't accept complete friendship on first approach. Carefully find out if he or she is worthy of being a good and true friend. Otherwise, you may find yourself in the ditch. Never give valuable papers or anything of value to a first acquaintance or a cordial friend or neighbor to keep. If the documents are very valuable, by way of information, don't allow even members of your own household to keep them. Keep them secretly and privately, because you don't know who may give you away, even innocently. There's always a third person in everybody's life. Be careful of that third person. That person may come between a man and his wife, a brother and his brother, a sister and her sister, a father and his children, a mother and her children. Remember, there's always a third person, and that third person may not like you very much. Also, be careful of the second person, because the third person always comes in through the second person. So this is another one of those, you know, great life advice. You know, message to the people is a lot of great life advice. There's always a third person. You know, there's all like the reality is that even if you have a relationship with one person, like if you have a relationship with somebody, there's also another person that has a relationship with both of you, in a sense, or has a relationship with the other person you have a relationship with, and in that regard, they can mess it up. It's like actually one time I was dating this woman, and like she had a son, and what happens is, you know, what happened is that like I mean, like, fortunate for me, her sons did like me, but it eventually became a point where, you know, like, her sons were kind of disagreeable. You know, her son was kind of disagreeable and not really too likable. Like, you know, and so, like, you could even say I was a third person, or what have you. But the reality is, and I mean by not likable, I mean like a habitual liar, like insanely. Like, why are you lying so damn much? But you know, this is how the world works. You know, there are people who are gonna, like, if this is particularly in the case of we don't have Oncopia, okay? If not everybody in a society of Oncopia, you can expect like you don't have to worry about the third person per se. But in a society of where there are Scotty, where there are activists and astute, if you will, right? Then what you're going to have is like the third person can be a saboteur, even if unwilling, you know, even if whatever. So definitely that's something to bear in mind. So you may quarrel with the second person sometimes, and in a passion of revenge, which you may regret afterwards, the second person may reveal your secrets. Therefore, take your secrets to the grave and only let Aman know about them. Never lose your head and divulge anything that would mean trouble for you with the law. The person who has a secret may change his mind about you and turn you in even after 20 years. So this is actually a good thing. So, you know, you really can't get in trouble with the law after 20 years, so that's pretty good. Not that I have anything illegal, but whatever. Or at least that's what I'm going to say, because it says never divulge anything that means trouble with the law. Alright, anyway, True that. Yeah, I feel smart and skillful. I feel yes sir. Yes sir. All right, let's get going. Many people get into trouble without knowing where the trouble comes from. Sometimes it comes right from your own home, by talking too much in your own home and by the circles in your home not appreciating your position. They innocently give the information out to other parties who are not interested in you, but are probably interested in seeing that the one you have offended gets justice. Therefore, the person prefers to see you hanged rather than see his friend, whom you have injured, go without justice because of what you might have done to that person in secret. So basically, keep your mouth shut. You know, keep your mouth shut, and understand that there's intelligence and counterintelligence, and you have to operate in that paradigm all the time. You know, part of me, like, well, that's pretty much it though. That's pretty much the whole lesson. I'm grateful for everybody who joined me. Firelight the Conqueror Rastafari. You know, Hotep, thanks you, Asante, for coming through. I'm gonna say hi to Wanda, because I know Wanda is listening, is going to listen at some point. And thank everybody. You know, share, like, subscribe. But this is right here, powerful text, and I want, like I'm reading it with you. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. And Asante Sana, Nitaya to and Talende Ma'at to Shinde is fact. Hotel.